How's it going, Brian? How's it going, Sherry?
Good evening. How are you doing, Dutch?
Hey,
Uh,
Dutch.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Sherry.
Thanks for joining us. Let's give folks a couple, maybe 20, 30 seconds so we can have some more folks join us.
All right. I'm gonna also give it the retweet.
Awesome. Hey, Wolf. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Poker Pro Eric. Thanks for joining us. Hey, TXT. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Kona. Thanks for joining us. Special shout out to our sponsor this evening, Elevated Results. Um, if you want to change your body style, gain weight, lose weight, get a healthier lifestyle, act more active, look them up for help. They'll be more than happy to help you with your goals. Brian, if you want to get us started.
Or, or just get totally muscular, Sherry, like
Hell
me.
yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. So glad to have my good friend Dutch Boyd on the spaces tonight. Um, Definitely one of my favorite people in poker for sure. And Sherry, do you want to go through and do the formal
I will be
introduction?
happy to. Born Russell Aaron Boyd, Dutch entered college at the age of 12 and became the youngest graduate from the University of Missouri at age 18. Imagine graduating law school before you're legally of legal age to drink. Just amazing. Our guest has worked in poker rooms in both California and Nevada. Besides being a partner in his law firm, Dutch has several startups, is an amateur coder, NFT collector, and Twitch streamer. Dutch is the proud owner of 3 WSOP bracelets, which includes winning one in 2006 in the 2500 No Limit 6 Max event, another in 2010 for the $2,500 Limit 6 Max event, and the third bracelet was for his win of the 2014 1K No Limit event. Our guest's best live cash was $475,712, which was the cash prize for his first bracelet win. He has just under $3 million in live earnings listed on Hendon Mob. Dutch, alongside Lauren Samuels, wrote the book titled Poker Tilt. Please join myself and Brian in welcoming Dutch Boyd to the spaces this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry. It's really great to be here. Seeing some all stars in the audience too. I just want to give a shout out to Biloxi Bomber. When I think back on my WSOP 2014 win, I could not have done it without the help from that man right there. He was on the rail, kind of watching the stream and letting me know what I was missing on the delay. And it's kind of interesting thinking about it too. I kind of feel like we see more and more of that, and it definitely could be one of those things where 20 years from now we all look back and say, "Oh, that's cheating." That's cheating, because it definitely felt like an unfair advantage having Chris Conrad on the rail, WPT bracelet winner and one of the top guys on the one of the top grinders on the trail,
And he's just an
recounting every move.
he's just an all around great guy that I'm happy to call friend. So I'm glad you're shouting him out, Dutch.
Yep. Well,
Dutch,
he's also one of the few people that I've played with that I feel is better than I am. It always kind of annoys me to say that, but like because there's a few, there's a few. I'm definitely not like one of the top 20 players. I definitely put myself somewhere in the top 150. And
I don't know. With 3 bracelets,
Biloxi Bombers, Biloxi Bombers better.
Yeah,
If he had been playing as many events as I had all the way back to the Moneymaker era, I'm sure that he'd have a few as well. Every year when they come up with the best player not to have one, he tops my list. So good to see you in the audience, buddy.
I don't know, Dutch. Didn't you once tell me that in poker we keep track by bracelets, and I don't think there's 150 people with 3 bracelets.
All right, so maybe I'm being a little humble. 75, 75, and
but
About
to
75.
Chris's credit, I think he has 4, maybe 5 circuit rings now. So he is a great player as well.
And I do think that like a circuit ring should be like 4 circuit rings should be worth 1 bracelet. You should be able to trade them in, like you do it like a Chuck E. Cheese, where you like gather all the tickets. You like go grind the trail, gather all these bracelets, and you should be able to like, Bodog Ari should be able to get like 3 bracelets for his 5 or for his 15 rings.
15 rings now,
And
yeah.
Maurice Hawkins should somewhere be in that in that list of bracelet winners just by virtue of having won so many rings. It's not fair that I get to walk down the halls of Caesars just being surrounded by fans and autograph hunters, and Maurice Hawkins walks down the hall and no one knows who he is. It's just not fair,
We're forced to genuflect, right? When you walk by, right? That's something.
Well, I'm going to just predict now that in the next 2 years, Biloxi Bomber is going to get number 1 and 2 bracelets.
I think that's I will take the other side of that. 2's hard. 2's hard.
I have faith.
Okay.
Sherry, I gotta be a little bit self-deprecating here and tell you something that's really kind of funny. Anytime I've ever shared a hand history with Dutch that I was kind of like proud of, I get about midway through the hand history, and Dutch says, "You did what?"
Talk about humbling.
It's like literally every single hand that I've ever been proud of how I played. I was like, "Oh man." So Dutch, like talk about this year a little bit. Like you ran deep early and you had a couple good caches.
Yeah, so started with a bang, kind of went out with a whimper. I started getting by getting second place in the Dealer's Choice 10K, which was awesome. It was the first time I'd actually played that, and I was able to sell action on it at face on Poker Stakes, so got to share in the success with a bunch of people. I think one guy even had more than my cut, which I kept 25% of myself. And it was pretty cool playing with some of the top players in the game. I definitely like the mixed games more than the Hold'em, even though all my bracelets are in Hold'em. Still waiting for that first non-Hold'em bracelet, and I got as close as you can this year. And then the rest of the series was just a complete fizzle. I had a couple of real deep runs where it was looking like I was going to have a nice stretch and a cash, and missed it. There was one big punt I had where I came in with a huge stack in one of the $1,500 millionaire makers or something, and then just punted it off on day 2. Aces cracked, and same thing happened in the Raz 10K Raz. Came into day 2 feeling super confident, but then just fizzled out. Main event, main event, same thing. So it was a good start, but it was I just wish that I would have packed it home, packed it in and called it a series after the first week, because the rest of it just sucked. And but any summer you come out and can walk away with more money than you started, you have to say it's a good summer. I mean, there's a lot of pros who just got completely buried. Some of my favorite vloggers were just completely buried and have been probably since.
Do you typically only keep 25% of yourself when you sell a package?
I was no, I would have liked to have more. I just put that as the maximum that I was willing to sell, and it sold out. So, but I probably wouldn't have played that one if I wasn't able to sell at least like a third of it.
Okay.
I just I kind of feel like the 10Ks are just a little bit out of my comfort level. That's the weird thing about the WSOP is, there's really no long term. There's no long run when it comes to these events, the summer events. Like as a poker player, you just kind of have faith that if you keep on grinding and you keep on putting the volume, then eventually your expected value is realized. That eventually, things even out and you're going to get your fair share of the Sunday millions and of the W coops and and the bracelets. But the truth of it is that's not really how it works. So the WSOP, there is no long run, and there's so much variance that it's just it can be pretty frustrating. And I think everybody is kind of over leveraging themselves, because when you look at the kind of bankroll requirements you really should have for the tournaments that we're playing, nobody really has it. Nobody. and that's kind of all the way up. I mean, like when I see some of the top players jumping in to $250,000 buy-in tournaments, and I think like what the math would say. Somebody like a Mason Malmuth, if he's getting out like Kelly criterion and risk to ruin equations and trying to come up with the amount of bankroll you would need to be able to play that tournament with, say, even like with anywhere close to an acceptable risk of ruin. I mean, there's just nobody has that, and so it's just everybody's over leveraged, and there is no long run, and it can be frustrating and exhilarating at the same time. Luckily, I kind of feel like I've had more than my fair share of good luck, but it definitely put in the volume as well. I mean, I've been when I start really thinking about the hours and weeks and months and years that I've spent at a poker table, it starts to kind of get depressing. But yeah.
Well, what do you think you need to play the 250K? What, 25 million or so?
I think you need
million?
like a quarter. I think you need like a $250 million. That's what I think you need. I think you need like a $250 million.
Couldn't decide.
And that's assuming, Brian. That's assuming that you have a positive edge. So I mean, like, how do you know if you have a positive edge? You have to put in quite a bit of volume just to even figure that out. So you could dust through $100 million and then realize, oh, you know what? This is not variance. It's because I'm bad. A bad poker player. I'm not getting better. And
it's kind of a big check.
And I'm not really sure how much you would have to lose in 250K high rollers before you could reasonably say, yeah, you know what, I'm actually a losing player, because there's so much variance. You could dust through, you could dust through 100 buy-ins and not win a couple of them, and like the edges are small, and then it takes a lot of losses before you really have to just admit to yourself that, you know what, I don't think I'm beating this game.
Well, there's also not like enough players for the first prize to be tons of multiples of that 250K either. I mean, I guess you're going to win more often than too, so probably the math maybe works out similarly. But it's interesting.
I do think, Brian, if there was one thing I could change about poker, I would definitely go for flatter payouts. I think that the main event, for example, the minimum cash, I think, should be more like $5,000. Like, you should be able to min cash a tournament and walk away with less money than you started with. Like that should be a thing, especially when you consider all of the satellite winners. And like I know there was you probably have already talked about it on the on your space, and I know it's a little bit late, but when I saw just how top heavy that that first place was for the main event, and like the fact that you had first place paying more than second and third combined, I mean, it's brutal.
Well, and doesn't it make for like better TV if it's flatter too? Because people like the deal where you're trying to ladder up and stuff. It's not as relevant.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely change the way people play, and with those kind of jumps, you definitely get into situations where the chip leader can just apply so much ICM pressure where it becomes kind of boring, where you just
Right.
have one guy basically wrestling the whole table down, and people not playing as aggressively as you'd like to see them, not taking the kind of chances because they're all playing for second or third. So yeah, I definitely feel like it is better. It is better to watch with flatter payouts. But
Did you?
I also just think it's better for the economy in general. Just to help players actually realize their expectations and not make poker such a winner take all. Because I think when you do,
Yeah.
when you have one player taking so much of the prize pool, the chances of it being kind of returned, and recycled through, it just isn't as high. You get the Peter Eastgates and the Daniel Colemans who exit stage left and you never see him again.
Yeah, it's better for the whole for everybody, for the players, and the venues get to build, get more rake because that player is going to be around next year. I mean, how often have you gone to the World Series where you have these deep-ish runs that just never materialize, and you cash, but like it's hard to even keep your head above water if you don't really, really make a couple deep runs.
I do know, Brian. I
All
do.
too
Unfortunately,
well. Is that what I'm hearing? He knows all too well.
all too well.
Dutch, we have a question in our comment section that I'm going to ask you in a minute. But first, I want to say, as soon as Brian and I ask some questions and explore some topics, we're definitely going to open up for comments and questions from anybody listening in the space. So please feel welcome to request when we do that. St. Michael's Pray For Us asks, or states, wondering if Dutch ever considers going on live Twitch and playing some WSOP once in a while. Miss those streams.
Thanks for saying so. Yeah, so for a couple of years there, I was just a pretty regular streamer. 3 or 4 times a week, jumping on with my partner Michelle, and we would just live stream the WSOP events. Not really trying to go back to that, but I do kind of miss jumping on Twitch and streaming and interacting with people. I like at this point, St. Michael. I've really kind of retired from playing poker full time, and I'm really doing really trying to make an effort to be a full time lawyer. I kind of feel like poker's really good during the WSOP for those 8 weeks, but for the rest of the year, I just felt like I was waiting. And there's always a tournament going on, and there's always there's always cash games, but for the most part, I kind of feel like poker happens in the summer, and the rest of it is just waiting. And it's like it definitely takes a toll. So now at this point in my life, I'm just trying to I'm trying to play lawyer instead of play poker player. And if I did go on Twitch and do some streams, I think it would be more like it would be more like playing video games and talking about how the characters are breaking laws, and kind of do an ask a lawyer type stream. um, but I don't think I'm ever going to be playing a WSOP.com $30 tournament again with the 5 or 6 minute delay, and trying to go through hand to hand the thought process. It was fun, and it paid the rent for a while, but it definitely became clear, and we pretty early, that we were not going to be Mr. Beast. It was not going to be that kind of thing. Poker is a small niche, and the number the number of viewers we had always capped out pretty low. And I also kind of feel like the streaming game is a little bit unfair. It's a little bit especially for poker, because what you end up having, or you have guys, you have organizations like PokerStars that are able to put a lot of marketing energy inflating the numbers that their streamers get. So and then they do little dirty things like embed the viewer in on their homepage. And when you've got Twitch when you've got Twitch streamers competing for an already small niche, it tends to be very much a winner take all game, where the top streamer is going to get the viewers, and it's pretty hard to compete without the sponsorship money behind you. And I just don't think that I would ever be in a position to get that sponsorship money. So for whatever reason, I got plenty of reasons why I feel like I'm unsponsorship, worthy. But just being American is usually enough. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. No, I'm not going back on
Okay,
Twitch.
let me follow up for St. Michael's. Sent another reply or comment saying, thanks for answering, Dutch. Would love to see you and Michelle stream once in a while, poker or otherwise. Another comment we have is from John Robertson. I am all for flatter payouts, but I do not agree with the min cash being smaller than the than the buy-in.
Well, what I would say to that is I'm looking forward to reading your Bubble Boy story.
Yeah.
I can't wait until I get to see that in Poker News. That you win your seat in some super satellite in the midnight hour, and you are the Bubble Boy. I think
Well,
maybe
that's the thing,
I think
especially
maybe
when
your position will change.
especially when you come to the World Series. Like, I mean, a lot of people there, aren't going there and playing every event or have never been, and for them just to get like a cash, quote unquote, is, it's a big deal. So.
And then you have so many more people who are going back to their home games and going back to their work and basically proselytizing for the World Series of Poker. Oh yeah, I cashed in the main event. Oh, congratulations. They don't necessarily tell the people that, oh well, I actually lost. They leave that part of the story out because
Yeah, that's not important, Dutch.
it's not important. They cashed. They cashed.
I have a.
And
But
I just think it's.
like you
I'll tell
said,
you what
a
else
lot of
too.
those.
Can I also throw
Go
this
ahead.
in too? One of the most unpleasant things that can happen in poker is to be on the bubble for for hours, going hand for hand, and nobody wants to move it along by doing us all the favor of busting. I remember being in a six max. It was like 5K six max a few years ago. Where that bubble, it must have lasted an hour and a half. It was miserable.
That's
It was a
horrible.
miserable time.
That's horrible.
And I kind of feel like it's one of those things where if they just made the payouts flatter, then there wouldn't be so much bubble pressure. Because in that specific tournament, there was the min cash was almost double the buy-in. And if they didn't have that, then they wouldn't have the same kind of hand for hand pressure. They might not even have to go hand for hand. So
Wait, yeah, you're in the main for $200 on a satellite, and you got a chance to win 15K. I mean, that is a big amount of money relative to that's bigger than most probably $200 buy-in tournaments that you do.
All
yeah.
right.
And at that point too, I mean, so much of your equity is wrapped up in that min cash. Like if the min cash had started smaller, that just wouldn't be the case.
Well, I have a question totally off topic. We're going to just pivot for just a second. What is your favorite poker room in the world?
Oh wow, it would have to be the Win.
Oh, interesting.
I just think the Win is just a beautiful room. It's really well run. I'm a little bit biased because I used to deal there as well, so I worked on the operations side. But you know what? I dealt at Bellagio too, and compared to the Win, the Bellagio is the Orleans. It's just the Win is a beautiful room. It's run well. It smells good. It feels good to be in there, and they treat their customers well. But even more than that, they always have your back as an employee, which I think just really elevates the room. I think that Resorts World is really good too. Some of the better dealers and floor staff moved over across the street to Resorts World when that opened up. Specifically Leon Wheeler, who runs the room at Resorts World. I just think he's an amazing an amazing operations guy. He's definitely one of my favorite. He's definitely the favorite boss that I've ever had. Like the best guy to work with, the best guy to work for, and his whole team that he brought over would basically just do anything for him. I think there's a good reason why all the mixed games are over at Resorts World because they do a great job too. But I love the feeling of the win. It just feels when you walk in there, it's like you feel like you feel like a billionaire,
And they do, you're
and
right,
it
they
just
have a great staff and they do a great job in the poker room for sure.
I got a question. I got a question, Dutch. What if I got Sean McCormick to bring back the Strawberry Julius and the Fontana Lounge at Bellagio? Do they move up a notch above the Orleans?
I gotta tell you, I love that Fontana Lounge. When they would have the WPTs in that Fontana Lounge, that was nice.
It's so special.
Um, they would have to bring back watermelon juice.
All
If
right.
they brought back watermelon juice, that would be good. But I will tell you this though, guys. I mean, yeah, the amount of abuse you would have to suffer as a dealer at the Bellagio, it's kind of inexcusable. It was like Southern LA Gardena style abuse, and it was there's just a big difference. It always kind of felt like you were you were on your own against a table full of angry poker players. It's just
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know what they can do to change it, but there's just definitely a different cultural culture vibe that that really changes the way that the room feels.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you have a couple people that are regulars that are coming in and just spreading that kind of thing, and you have to be. I think you got to be on top of that. I don't Dutch. I don't play in LA at all, like because of that vibe that you mentioned. Like I just don't like it. It's not fun, and I want to go somewhere where people are there to have a good time and yeah, hand over their chips and stuff, but even if the game's profitable, like if it's not fun, I mean, I'm not there to be the professional poker player. Like, I have my day job and all that. Dutch, what do you think about that? Like, how has poker kind of helped you with being a lawyer and that kind of thing?
Well, I definitely think that there's some lessons that you can learn from poker that you can apply to anything, and being a lawyer and especially building a law firm is no different. Definitely looking at clients and cases kind of in an expected value kind of way. I feel like it's helpful. Kind of seeing every single case that comes across your desk as a little poker hand that you're playing. And I think what ends up happening is that poker players, just kind of as a population, are a little bit more risk seeking, a little bit less risk averse than the average population. And it comes through. It comes through when it comes to like settlement negotiations, willing to actually go to trial. I feel like poker kind of helped me in that regard because it's kind of like if somebody comes up to you and says, okay, well, let's flip a coin for $100. The poker player, I mean, is like, well, no, but if I win and I get 101 and versus your 99, I'm flipping all day. And I think every successful poker player has that, a willingness to to take the small edges and kind of see it through, whereas normies don't. Normal people, you come up to them with a proposition like that and say, okay, well, let's flip a coin, and if I win, I get $99, and if you get, you win, you get 101. More often than not, they're going to turn that down. They're going to say, oh no, that's too much. That's like 4 hours of work. I'm not doing that. And like that's the normal view. And most people, whether when they're like now they're lawyers with this normie view, they're just way too quick to settle. They're way too quick to not want to risk anything by actually going to
Right.
trial and actually realizing the basically seeing the showdown. They always want to run it twice, and they want to take the insurance, and it's just like, I kind of feel like poker did a pretty good job preparing me to not do that, to really see, to really kind of see everything in expected values and bets, but also, not be so risk seeking that you're risking your whole law firm on one case.
Yeah, that's probably.
And also, Sherry, I wanted to make kind of make a point, just professionally as a lawyer. Earlier on, you mentioned that I was a partner at my firm. It's just a solo practice. So I got VegasCounsel.com. I'm licensed in Nevada and Missouri. If anybody had some legal questions, then now's a pretty good time to ask, because you got a licensed attorney with a pretty specific niche knowledge of poker and gaming.
Awesome.
More than willing to kind of answer. But I'm not a partner at the firm. The firm, I'm the only guy there. I mean, it's just,
He is the firm.
That
I
is
am
the
the firm.
firm. Thank you for that correction.
But
And
I just wanted to make it
well,
clear.
and I'm glad you did. We rely on Google so much that, it's our Bible. So I always appreciate any corrections that need to be made. Two things. I have two housekeeping things. One, if anybody has any questions or comments for Dutch, please go ahead and request so we can get you approved to be a speaker. And two, I want to give a little shout out to our Elevator Results sponsor. Their purpose is to provide a service to help people reach their desired fitness goals. So, Elevator Results, thank you for the sponsorship. Again, if you have questions or comments for Dutch or anyone else, please request the microphone. Thank you.
I think that's interesting, Dutch. Like, being able to explain that kind of logic to clients as well, right? Like, you can go to Showdown here, right? You can fold, or you can, you can accept the deal here, but you're giving up this, and just in a much more strategic way, explain that to people, because ultimately they have to decide, right? Like you present a settlement, and then they decide, but helping them think through it in that kind of way, right?
Yeah, I mean, the decision about whether to settle or not is always the client's decision, always.
Yeah.
But having said that, any good lawyer is going to have client control. And there's definitely going to be some times when you can kind of strong arm a client to take a settlement or to avoid it.
Let's talk about that security box issue. And we don't need to name the property because it's not necessary.
Oh,
But
did you see that?
yeah, so
Yep.
let's not name the property. But during the WSOP, somebody went to their security box at a casino, and it was empty. So
and can we say who it was? It was Mike Gordinsky.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God! At the Bellagio.
Okay, no announcing
Oh, no.
the property.
Hey, Sean isn't in here. We've had this conversation before, Dutch, with Sean McCormick in there, and we're like trying to dodge which property it is.
We just want to, Sean's a friend of the show, and
he's not in here, so we're okay.
but we asked him about it, in general.
I love Sean, and
comments.
I would just point out that that would never have happened at the Aria. Sean runs a tight ship, and I definitely feel like
and I just
he's over Bellagio too, though, Dutch.
Yes, he's now over all of them.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you get so high up that you're not over any of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, he is over poker operations.
So the whole situation, right, Dutch? The key didn't work and all that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, it's pretty interesting to me. It's when you think about the amount of just straight violence that people will go through to like rob a bank for $10,000, and then something like that happens where it's such a significant amount of money. I mean, what do I think? I mean, like, what is there to think? I feel horrible for Mike. I
Do you know
believe
what the
everything that he's
outcome?
saying.
Do you know what the outcome was? I mean, did they figure out what the hell happened?
I don't know, but I think last I heard was they said, sorry, but
Dang.
we're not on the hook for it. I mean, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some new development. I know, Mike was, thinking about, going all legal on him, and but then he started thinking harder about it and realizing, that if he the more he kind of blows it up, I mean, he could be in a situation where maybe he sues them on some sort of negligence, negligent security theory, and wins and gets his money back, and then shows up to go play, some 1,000, 2,000, stud game, and they say, "Sorry, Mike, you're no longer welcome at the Bellagio or any MGM
Right.
property."
Right.
And like, companies have been known to kind of do that, kind of retaliate in that way. And I dealt to Mike a bunch of times at the Bellagio, and he plays he plays, in games where he could he would lose a lot of money if he got banned, because he's one of the best players in the world, and he's not yeah, the kind of the amount that he lost in his box is like a buy-in on some of these games, and
Right.
there's just nosebleeds. So it's just, he's kind of at a, he's kind of looking at it the right way, because if I was giving him legal advice, I'd say, yeah, maybe you have a case here, maybe you even win, but you could be in a situation where, where you lose.
Yeah, the bigger
Sometimes when
picture
you
is
win,
more
you lose.
costly. Right.
So
The
did
big.
you see Dutch when all this was going on that Matt Glantz posted about Poker Night in America? Did you see that?
I didn't. I
Okay,
didn't.
so Matt Glantz talked about he was producing Poker Night in America at the Golden Nugget back in 2016, and a bunch of the players brought Aria chips, and so they needed to change them. So he collected the 425K chips, three and then 3 1K chips for a total of 103,000. He handed them to the floor person in charge. She counted them out and left for the cage. 20 minutes later, he gets a phone call with her telling him that she only has 78,000 in chips. She knows that he gave her 103,000, but now only has 78K. So anyway, they go and play the thing. They play it out and whatever, but he ends up owing the 20 the whatever was missing, 25K or so that was missing. And then he ultimately said, after the third lawyer telling me the same thing, I gave up. No lawyer wants to take on any big casinos for 25K, for two reasons. One, it's not enough to be worth it for them. Two, they don't want to risk future business. So it's kind of like he had kind of a similar thing
The
happen.
bigger picture.
God,
Yeah.
that's so gross. That's so gross.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Sad but true.
So what are you up to these days, Dutch?
Just potty training toddlers and playing, like doing a bunch of lawyer stuff.
How
Trying
many
to.
children do you have, Dutch? How many children?
I have two COVID babies. So I have a little boy who's 3 and a little girl who's 1.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
And Sherry,
Yeah.
Dutch is like our friend Snoop Dogg. He outkicked his punt coverage. If you're ever at the World Series and Michelle is around, she's like everybody's favorite person. They like tolerate Dutch. It's kind of like my wife. They tolerate me, to be able to hang out with Melanie.
It's exactly like your wife, Brian.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
exactly we're kindred souls in that regard.
Well, truth be told, Dutch, I think I met you and your wife at a charity event in 2019. Matt Stout's charity event. I was taking photos, and I think I
took a couple of photos of you guys.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I do think I remember that. I think that was the one at the Palms.
No,
I want
it
to
was
say.
over at
Oh, Planet Hollywood.
Planet
It was
Hollywood.
Planet
Right.
Hollywood. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Planet Hollywood.
That was a fun event.
And you and your wife were just delightful. We spoke for quite, some time. It was just a fun time.
Thanks for saying so.
Yeah, she's awesome. All right.
All right, I have a question. Um, we all know you're the prodigy child. Doogie Howser's role as the doctor was already taken, so you chose the lawyer route. But did you have a poker coach or study partners?
A poker coach or study partners. That's interesting. So when I first started getting into the game, it was right around 1998. Rounders came out, and I went to go see that movie in theaters. Had never played a game of Texas Hold'em. I didn't know it was a thing. I played a little bit of five card draw with my grandma and my brother, and just family kitchen table kind of penny ante bullshit. But when Rounders came out, and I realized, wow, this is kind of this is actually a thing. There's a whole subculture here that I wasn't even aware of, and the whole storyline of Rounders with a law student dropping out of school and getting a professor to loan him $10,000, to grind it
Right.
up, and I mean, like it kind of sang to me. I was kind of at this point in law school where I think that I was in my 2L year, maybe even a 3L at that point, where kind of feeling burnt out. And I think
Right.
at the time I was 17 years old. I was not really thinking that I wanted to grow up just yet, and go into some big law, position where I'm suiting up and doing document review for years. And it just kind of felt like I had this whole path that was kind of starting to be concrete and laid out in front of me. And, it seemed kind of scary, and I was burnt out. I didn't want to do it. And then, out comes Mike McD. Listen, here's the thing, and it just resonated in a way that like nothing ever really has before. And I think back on it, I wish that maybe if Brian Koppelman and and Levine had released Billions before Rounders, that I would be much better off. But instead they do Rounders, and I decided that I want to be Mikey McD, and just kind of went head first into it. And at that point, there was not a lot of information out there.
Right.
There were very few books. It was hard to come by, because this is before Amazon was really a thing, and before you could just go and order anything and have it delivered the next day. So actually trying to get the information and improve your game was pretty difficult. There were a couple of news groups that I jumped on, IRC chats, and online poker was just starting with a site called Planet Poker, because I asked all my friends. Nobody played. Nobody knew of any home games. Nobody really cared to play. And so I kind of started with online poker, first playing free poker on Yahoo. Yahoo Games was kind of the place to be, and then started playing on Planet Poker. And it was felt I thought it was awesome. I had to send in my driver's license, and they didn't seem to care that I was under 18 and playing from Missouri. It was awesome. I'm sitting here playing like 1-2 and 2-4 limit Texas Hold'em. Really
Let
kind
me
of.
let me ask you, did you have to send a copy of your license via snail mail by any chance, or were you able to email it in?
They
I
had
think I emailed it
faxes.
in. I think
Okay.
they did have email at that point. But they were trying to make sure that everybody was who they say they were before they would catch you out. And um, so yeah, so I mean, it was very solitary at the beginning, but a couple of years go by, and poker starts to kind of emerges like as a thing. I kind of feel like there were a lot of people who kind of got into it because of rounders,
Right.
and so then, once I started going into Vegas and playing the World Series of Poker, once I hit 21 a few years later, kind of started falling in with the poker subculture, and making some decent friends. And you know I definitely feel like there's kind of a class of poker, like kind of an OG status, where if you were in before rounders, you're kind of in a different, a different class. And
Right.
then there's like the rounders to moneymaker years, which is kind of its own little class of OG player. And then you got, kind of post moneymaker, pre Black Friday, and then you got the post Black Friday stuff. They'll probably have a new class of post COVID. And I came up with the pre moneymaker guys. So a lot of us, some of the guys like Antonio Espondiari, Phil Locke, and then I had the crew, which was Joe Bartholdi and Scott Fishman and Brett Youngblood. I definitely spent a lot of time with those guys, and kind of thinking about the game and talking about the game and talking about hands. And then when Eric Haber, Sheets, and Cliff Josephy, they kind of came on the scene and started staking players. I was one of the first in their stable, and they spent a lot of time doing poker, training and reviews and stuff. I think they might have had the very first poker training site, which was Poker X Factor.
I'm still a subscriber. I think Dutch. They're still billing my credit card. I think. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Worth every
That's
penny, I'm
funny.
sure.
There,
That's
So I mean,
funny.
it became easier to kind of find your tribe in poker, But at the very beginning, I would say, it was very solitary. Didn't really have anybody, and there
Right.
wasn't really any information to get. There wasn't, there wasn't the kind of, solvers or books or information. I mean, I remember hearing a story about Doyle Brunson actually taking a deck and like dealing himself, hand after hand after hand and flop after flop. And I'm kind of old enough in the game where I did that as well. Sitting there and in a room by myself, just dealing 10 hands in a circle and then dealing a flop over and over and over thousands of times, to just kind of get a feel for what beats what. And then actually having to put together my own spreadsheets where I'm trying to come up with average hands, and the chances of a hand like King 7 being the best when you're on the button and everyone folds to you. And it was it was really easy back then to get an edge, because nobody realized that you could 3-bet as wide as you can, pre-flop. And nobody realized that, if everybody folded to you, you didn't have to have much to take, to take a hand and try to just steal blinds with it, especially when the antes hit. This was kind of new information that was being developed and wasn't really known. And when I think about how the game's changed, fundamentally it hasn't. Fundamentally, you're still sitting there against eight, 8 or 9 people who are all, thinking about the game and trying their best to beat you and trying to figure out ways to beat you. And you're dealt into these situations where, they've never actually happened before. When you start looking at, when you start looking at the actual situation you're in, it's something that has never happened before and never will happen again. And you're just trying to come up with a way to win against these 8 people. That is never going to change. But what has changed is the access to information and the ability to kind of get to kind of a GTO level. It's kind of like what Snowy did for backgammon. I kind of feel like a lot of the training sites, solvers, YouTube, the books, the information available is just, is so much, and whole card cameras too. The
Right.
information available now is just at a completely different level, where you can take a new player, and kind of push him through the training, the training regime, and he can come out the other side in pretty quick order, being able to hold his own at a pretty high level. That being said, I do think that there's a lot that just can't be trained. There's a lot of situational awareness that becomes ingrained kind of at a subconscious level, that really only comes from having a million hands under your belt. And there's a lot of like gut reactions that are hard to really define, but are just kind of beaten into you after decades of taking beats and being wrong when you think somebody's bluffing, or being shown the bluff when you're sure he has it. That like, it doesn't matter how many sims you run, you're just never going to be able to get to the level where there's no there's no replacing that kind of experience.
It's funny you said that, because I was having a conversation with a friend the other morning, and he's relatively new in the poker world. And I told him nothing beats seat time. No studying around beats seat time, because it is a minute to minute learning as you're there, and you're going to learn lessons the whole time you're there, as long as you're willing to receive them. Nothing beats seat time.
It's true, and poker is a physical game. Live poker is a physical game, where the way that you're putting your chips out, and the way that you're breathing, and having that kind of muscle control, and being able to pick up on that kind of muscle control of your opponents. It's kind of like expecting that you can become a really good free throw shooter by watching YouTube videos of Steph Curry. Like that's not how it works.
All
And
right.
you can take as many masterclass lessons as you want, but and until you get into the kitchen, you're never going to be able to to cook a pancake. Doesn't matter how many YouTube videos you watch, and poker's a skill like that. And I think a lot of people think that the game has changed so much because of these solvers and because of the information that's out there, that they don't realize how weak they actually are. When you put somebody who is just kind of has the PO solver blinders on, and they're sitting there and they're like, oh well, it's I have to call here because his bluffing range is like, no, you don't have to call, because he's never bluffing. It's like, no, he is. He's like, no, look at him, he's not bluffing.
He's not bluffing.
And
Well,
it's just
and
like, okay, well.
And should you be jumping up and down about getting your chips in, like you said earlier, at a 51% favorite,
Yeah.
for your main event, or whatever? It's like, maybe that's not the right decision. Quite.
Now,
Dutch, what
Dutch,
do
I
you
know that's your. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
what like, talk about 2003 and all of that? When was it 2003 when ESPN's like the Young Guns and all that? How much of that did they blow up? How much of that do you feel is like reality? Like, I remember back in the day, everybody was like, the Young Guns, these are the guys that are the greatest players in the world.
Yeah, it's 100% true. we were the best. I don't know. I mean, like, I definitely feel like, especially when it comes to the crew, right? When it comes to specifically, the seven guys who were in the crew. Now at this point, 20 years fast forward, there were only really four of us who had any sort of WPT or WSOP success. Another guy in the crew, he did have some some kind of mid-range success, Tony Lazar, and he's a pretty well-known poker player up in Minnesota. And then two of the guys never really went pro, and went and did their own thing. And I kind of look back on it, when they started kind of blowing up the idea of the crew, none of us had any sort of success. It was really they started kind of following us, and then Scott Fishman had a week where he just won 2 bracelets and could do no wrong. And at that point, when somebody wins 2 bracelets in a week, it's kind of hard to say that they're not the best in the world. At that point.
In that moment.
That week, yes.
Moment. And I kind of feel like you see that a lot. Like, this year at the WSOP, I think we saw that with Chad Eveslage, where he won the dealer's choice, and then he won the dealer's choice again. And it just feels like, he is the best then. But then whatever he was drinking, wears off. Whatever happens, your body starts, building an immunity to whatever amphetamine was bringing you to that level or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're not the best anymore, and now you're just you're addicted to Adderall. So I don't know. I mean, but I do kind of feel like we used it. The WSOP and the brand and ESPN kind of saw this as an opportunity to to maybe blow poker up in a different demographic. And so they kind of latched on to the crew story and the crew narrative. Here's a couple of young guns who are in the game, and they're just destroying everything they touch. And was it true? Not really. Was it even really that tight of a group? No, it wasn't. That's the truth of it. When I look back on it, it's the kind of connections we had were actually even less strong, now that I think about it, than I thought at the time. But we were able to use the narrative to our advantage, I think, a little bit. And I definitely feel like there was kind of a group of kind of a category of poker players who that appealed to, the same way that Mike McD and Rounders appealed to me in law school, who looked at the crew and looked at that narrative and thought, I'm going to drop out of school. I'm going to do it. I don't know, but I suspect that maybe some of the Ship and Holla Balla guys kind of were attracted by that narrative. It was kind of like a whole group of kind of younger players that looked at that, and it appealed to them in a way that maybe the Moneymaker narrative wouldn't have. That wouldn't have. I mean, Moneymaker appealed to a whole different class of everyman, but the crew narrative, kind of appealed to the bored overachiever who is not sure that he's liking what his life's looking like after he gets out of college, and wants to be more of a rebellious have more of a rebellious story to him, and I kind of think that we were probably responsible for a lot of dropouts from college. Maybe that's not a good thing.
Who do you?
Yeah, I would say maybe that answers the question, but we were definitely used by media to kind of paint a narrative that they wanted, and we kind of used the narrative to our advantage too.
Okay, I noticed that you have 2 other Twitter handles. You want to tell us what you have going on in the world of NFTs?
Yeah, not really. Not a good week to really even talk about crypto and NFTs. I mean, I don't know how much you've been kind of paying attention, Sherry, to the crypto industry, but it's I think everybody who's touched it is down bad right now. I was in really early. I think a lot of poker players were in really, really early in crypto because very early on in Bitcoin's history, the main use cases were drugs on Silk Road and illegal gambling.
Right.
And one of the online poker sites that I think a lot of us played on back then was Fields with Clubs, and Brian Micon, I think, was really the Bitcoin prophet, basically giving 1 Bitcoin to anybody who would even listen to him, and he would not shut up about it. Basically saying put all your money into this. It's gonna be worth $10,000 a coin. And I remember so I was probably too early, because when I think about at the height, I think I had something like 300 or 400 Bitcoin, and it was worth like $5 a coin, and converted it all to pay rent, and then I remember also once buying something off of Silk Road, and when I think about how much that cost me in actual terms, if I would have just lost it on a hardware wallet or something, it's just kind of gross. One of my best friends, he bet 2,000 Bitcoin on a Kings game. when it was like $1 a
Oh my
coin,
God.
2,000 Bitcoin. And, you start doing the math and it's like, dude, that's $120 million at its height. I mean, like, wow, but yeah, crypto's a sad story. It's, and I don't know what's worse, is getting in too early and selling all the way up, or getting in too late and watching everybody make all the money. I will say this, no, both feel bad. I've been on each side of it. You're never going to be able to time the market right, and it just definitely feels bad, whichever way you're in. Whether you put money in and lost it, or got money in early and sold to early. It's really hard, psychologically. I actually think poker kind of gets you in the right mindset for that. Why there's some good crossover there. Yeah, but gosh, crypto's brutal, just brutal. And this week has been really brutal. Just watching the blood. 10% drops in a single day.
Just for the record, I don't do crypto. I don't follow crypto. I don't give a shit about crypto. Uh, and
This is
that's
Sherry's moment, like when I asked, when WSOP announced Bahamas, I asked Matt Savage if he's going to go to the Bahamas this year.
no.
I think he still thinks I was trolling him.
I think I'm glad I wasn't there, but yeah, anyway, I only brought it up because I wanted you to promote it if it was a business for you. So there you go.
I appreciate it, Sherry. No, the only
Of
thing I would
course,
want to
hon.
promote at this point would be my law firm. If anybody's out there listening needs a lawyer, and you will
I,
need a lawyer. Then hit me up. It's vegascounsel.com. Pretty easy to find, and
VegasCouncil.com. Dutch
open
boy
for
for your,
business. You're gonna
yeah.
be
For
giving,
business.
you're gonna be giving too much money to somebody. Might as well be your boy Dutchy.
There you go. Cycle it back into the poker economy.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. That's right. All the tournaments are. I just donate.
So who do you still keep in track? I know you still talk with Brett every once in a while, but who like Scott or any of those guys you still keep in touch with?
Not too much. Scott Fishman is kind of a ghost at this point, and I don't know where
Yeah.
he's at. Haven't seen him in a WSOP since 2013. Joe Bartholdi and I aren't really on good terms. We had a prop bet issue that kind of went south, and it made poker news if anyone's interested. But not really on good terms with him anymore. We used to be pretty tight. And then Brett, we still talk. Actually, Brett's in law school. So he's kind of taking the page and doing the reverse rounders thing,
I
where going and trying to get
Good for him.
hard up.
I can
And you know
remember.
what? If I could give one piece of advice to anybody listening who's actually trying to make a living playing poker, don't. That would be my piece of advice. 20 years in, I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. It's such a good hobby. It's such a good thing to do on the side. But my life has been so much better and so much more fulfilling and just easier going and doing an actual real career that people want to pay you to do. It's like it's like night and day. And there's a reason why it's hard to rent an apartment as a poker player. When you try to buck society, and when you try to say, okay, well, I want to do my own thing and go my own path. I mean, I feel, I'm proud of you. That's a good thing to want to do, and it's a good thing to try. But at some point, you just have to realize that when you do that, society is going to beat you down, because that's what it does. It's going to beat you down. You're going to have tax issues. You're going to have issues getting a mortgage. You're going to have issues, with credit cards. You're going to have problems, and then before long, what's going to happen is you're going to be, in your mid 30s, and you're going to be completely unemployable because your resume is just going to have this huge 15-year gap. And if you try to explain it to somebody, oh no, I've actually been beating the 2-5 game for $45 an hour, so it's really good. They don't care. They don't care. And it's that's one advantage of having bracelets, is you can say, okay, well, according to this website and according to the WSOP website and according to ESPN, I'm a champion. But you know what? I'll tell you, they don't care about that either. You know, they want conformity. They want somebody that they can rely on. And poker players are kind of flaky, and you know, it's just not worth doing. And when you think about why you're doing it, and you want the freedom to do whatever you want to do, you got to just at some point recognize that when you sit down playing poker, you know, for a living, that you are trading your life for money. There's no way around it, and you are going to be better off doing something else. And when I realized that, you know, I really realized that when I started dealing, and I'd be dealing the 1-3 or the 2-5 no limit games on like a Wednesday, you know, graveyard shift, and the games all sucked, and I'm up against I'm dealing to the same 7 pros who are always sitting there, and it's like a purgatory. They're still there. The same 7 guys are still there trying to eke out, you know, the $25 an hour against each other. There's just a lot of PvP violence. Meanwhile, the guy dealing is making $10 an hour more than them, and there's a reason for that. You know, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why the dealer makes more than any player at the 1-3 or 2-5 game. And it's just like when you realize that your life is going to be better if you just, you know, suck it up and recognize that it's a grind, and there is no such thing as freedom. You know, it's sad, but that's what I've taken away from 20 years trying. Once you accept that and start moving forward into, you know, an actual career path, your life will be way better, because you look at the top guys of any profession, the top 1% of any profession, and then you look at the top 1% of our profession, the poker profession, and it is just sad. Some of the brightest, best talented players, you know, the one that really gets me when I really want to get depressed, and I know that we're kind of, you know, ending, so I don't want to end on a sour note, but the one that just really gets me is Lane. When Lane Flack died, and I started thinking about how talented he was just at the game, but also just as a person, you know, just as a person, and how much better his life would have been if he would have just done something else, anything, you know, anything else, you know. And I just
Those are great points,
I mean,
Dutch.
one thing I want to say about Lane is obviously super smart Dutch, but the other thing about Lane that was like really like potential, like you're saying, everybody genuinely liked the guy. I mean, I don't know, maybe people didn't, but like when I was around, it seemed like
we
everybody
loved
liked
him.
him.
We
Like,
loved him,
right?
Brian.
And
Like
everybody
couldn't
rooted
do it.
for him.
And
You're like
he would
sitting
have
at the poker table wishing you'd lose your chips to him. No, I'm just kidding. But
yep, he would have
seriously,
been the top 1% of anything he tried, and
yes.
anything else would have been so much more rewarding. You know, and I just say, you know, I think that for people who are listening, I think that there's probably, you know, a couple of them listening who are really, you know, making a go at it, trying to be pro at poker. And you know, if there's one thing that I could say from 20 years doing it, it's that you're better off not. Treat poker as a hobby. Treat poker as a you know, as a fun thing to do in the summers, and a good way to get together with
Yeah.
people that, you know, that you like to be around. It's a fun skill to have, but it's not something that I think anybody's life is better when they try to devote their life to it. Anybody.
Earlier you mentioned the sponsorship stuff, and I don't know if you've seen, and I don't want to talk, I'm not talking about anybody specifically or the controversy over whether they were doing this or not, but it's kind of come out that a lot of these sites now, obviously they have like the slot machines and stuff like that, and instead of giving these streamers like money, or you know, through their accounts, they're giving them money for them to play on these slot machines, so that hopefully, you know, like, you know, you'll see them winning these big jackpots and whatever on their stream, and you know, you it, and it's just kind of this like really, you know, there was a big debate in the spaces about whether these streamers should be disclosing that and how fair it was. A lot of the people thought that it really, like, you know, encouraged people to be really irresponsible, and because you're watching this person win these
Yeah.
slot machines, and
It's
you're
like, if
thinking,
you're enjoying the stream, check out
yeah,
our sponsor, the Suicide Pill.
yeah,
It's like, okay.
it's just
Anyway,
a
guys,
really bad thing. Yeah.
I don't mean to get down. I definitely don't. Poker's wonderful. Poker's great. Everybody should play. I also think that poker's suffering from a problem too, that we're not really getting the youth anymore. The younger players, aren't really. I'm not really seeing the 22 and 23-year-old kids at the WSOP tables, that worries me, because when I think about when I think about the numbers this summer, it definitely felt like poker is kind of seeing a kind of a new golden age. And when we see more players playing the main event than did in Jamie Gold's year, but I just wonder if I wonder if the resurgence isn't actually real. If what we're actually seeing is just the average age of the participant rising, and so their net worth is rising as well. But we're not really seeing the next generation coming in, and
Well,
there's
you are also seeing a little bit of I would say, repair in the satellite landscape too, with the club WPT stuff. Those places, Dutch, they're sending like real numbers now, where that just disappeared in 2000 whatever 10 or whatever.
Yeah, but it wouldn't really account for the increased numbers in the prelims. I don't think that there were a lot of satellites to the 10K dealer's choice. I mean, we're seeing the numbers go up, but I just wonder if what we're seeing is an illusion, and the game is actually graying out. Because unless we can start becoming attractive to the 22-year-old and 23-year-old kids, or the 17-year-olds in high school, who are watching Fortnite and Hearthstone, and
Yeah,
that's, if we can't capture
that's the
the
future.
interest of that generation, then our game is gonna die. You know.
I'm gonna do some house cleaning right now. First, thanking our sponsor, Elevated Results, and second, I'm gonna go through some of the comments in our chat here. First, John Robertson said that he agrees with what Dutch is saying right now about poker as a hobby slash side hustle is so much more fulfilling than trying to make it as a poker pro. I totally agree with that. Also, another comment from Robin. I used to watch Dutch on Twitch and I learned a lot. Then we have, I see a troll, which he may get blocked if he doesn't knock it off. Um, and I see he deleted it. So anyway, I'm going to skip over it. And then we have ASG asks, or
We're
states
we're
and
gonna
asks.
skip that. We're gonna skip that.
Um, I think
Yep.
I think we should ask it and let him decide if he wants to answer it or not. That's
I
kind of my approach. But
would just skip it
Okay, so
and
I
answer
don't know what
the
it
title.
is, and I don't mean to be dodgy,
Well,
but I
here's the
did
thing.
kind of
Like,
I, I did
it's
kind
a
of
little bit
promise
of a
my kids we'd go on
controversial
a little
question,
walk.
Dutch. And ASG, I'm not trying to dog you for asking it. It's certainly cool to ask. What I told Dutch coming in here, like, I don't like, this is never like the controversial space. Like, I don't want to bring up things that people, it's everybody gets to come in and just have a conversation. Like the alternative space is the alternative space for a reason, and I think that it's not like the
See,
gotcha kind of
uh,
question.
this
Dutch
is
is
why I
sitting there
love you,
not knowing what
Brian.
we're talking about.
You're protective. I don't even know what you're protecting me from, but I appreciate it. Don't ask the
well,
question. I don't want to know.
my approach is always going to be that the guest can always decline answering any question. So that's where I'm at with it. But we are moving along. Thank you. If anybody has a question or comment, they can come up or they can put it in the chat and we'll go from there. Thank you.
So guys, I'm actually gonna have to deck out. I told my wife and two kids that we are gonna go for a walk after this is over, and she said, "Okay, well, make it be an hour." So I'm 15 minutes over.
15 minutes over.
But I really
and that's
appreciate you
perfect.
having me on the show, Sherry and Brian. Definitely appreciate the opportunity to come on and kind of wax philosophical about the game that I love. And if anybody does have any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out, to me personally. Dutch at dutchboyd.com is my email address, and they can also get in touch with me through the law firm website at vegascounsel.com. So depending on whether it's a poker question or a legal question, choose one or the other. I'd love to come on again. Sherry, Brian, I like your guys' show, and of course, Brian is one of my favorite people in poker. Even though I would not buy a lesson from him. I will say that we were on the tag team this summer, and he did way better than I did. I wish that I could have like a bad beat story. We got knocked out, and he had the better end of it when he did knock us out. I will say that, but he did the right thing. Meanwhile, when he's like, "What happened? What happened to our stack?" And I'm like, "Well, so I had 6-3 off suit and middle position. And the guy raises under the gun, but he's wearing a Fossil watch. So what am I supposed to do? I 3-bet him, and it's like, okay, he's a good player, and I definitely like playing tag team with him, and he's one of my favorite people in poker. So anytime you guys want some more bracelet cred on your show, feel free to hit me up with short notice, and I'd love to come back on again.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Dutch, and I have to tell you that we were cheering you on from the spaces. Brian and I hosted a space every day during the WSOP, and Brian was always giving us updates, and we were cheering you guys on as a tag team and as individuals just playing whatever events you were playing. So appreciate you, Dutch, and good luck, bud.
Yeah, I picked you, Dutch, and we only got to pick like one or two people, right? I picked you in every event, Dutch, and you did okay in one of them. So.
And I kept trying to tell him that he may have been the bad luck charm, but he wasn't having it.
Maybe.
It's funny. I'm not very consistent, but I have a very good slugging percentage. So that's what actually counts in poker tournaments. It kind of rewards that streaky inconsistency. Guys, thanks so much. I look forward to next time.
Thanks.
Thank you, and thank everybody for tuning in. We appreciate your audience, and we will see you soon in the spaces.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Dutch.